Hello, everyone. We're back, and we have a great guest today. This is David Yeaman. He is the president and co-owner of Molded Precision Components. It's a Canadian advanced manufacturing company based in Ontario, or Medante. I hope I pronounced that right. So David is a mechanical engineer with over 30 years of manufacturing experience. So since acquiring MPC in 2006, David has grown the business from a small prototype shop into a vertically integrated industry-driven manufacturing company serving automotive, medical, and consumer markets. So he's got a ton of experience in sales. So we're really excited to have you as a guest. So thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so as you know, there's a lot of people that are going to be watching this that are maybe don't have as much experience as you in sales and running a business and starting from the ground up. So we're excited to kind of dig deep into pick your brain today to talk about sales. So why don't we start from the beginning? Take us back. Like, what's the story about how you got started and what was your very first real sale?
Yeah, well, I was 33 years old when we decided to step off working for somebody else and start our own business. And it started with myself and a business partner, both mechanical engineers. And to be fair, none of us had really worked in operating a business necessarily or directly within sales, although my unique ability was working with customers on the engineering side, which ultimately drove sales, which was kind of our secret sauce today. So we started when we were like 33 in 2006. I like to say 2 guys in a molding machine, like the restaurant, 2 guys in a stove, and molding machine, 2 guys, and 0 in sales. And today we are on track for 20 million in sales and over 100 people and 70,000 square feet and 48 molding machines. And we now compete on the world stage with respect to advanced manufacturing specific to injection molding for products in the automotive industry, medical, and horticulture, and some industrial components as well. So it's been quite a challenge over the last 20 years, and we've learned a lot. And so that's how we got started.
Amazing.
Yeah, so 3 guys, 5 and under, no money, house mortgaged, no investment capital, just on our own dollar. And still to this day, it's a privately held company between the 2 of us, and we continue to expand as we grow.
Good job. Amazing. So when you're looking at your business today, what does growth mean to you? Like, is it about revenue? Is it market share, team size, or something else?
Yeah. One of my challenge with traditional quote unquote salespeople, or let's say sales reps, is that they make it about revenue, but revenue doesn't mean anything if there's no profit and there's no relationship. So for us, it's not really about a sales number. It's about maximizing your EBITDA, right? Your net profit. But it's really about building the appropriate team that in order to be able to execute whatever you're able to sell. So it's great if you can sell, but if you can't execute what you can dig up, then you're nobody. So I always say I can buy all the technology in the world, but we're nothing without our people. So it's really about building a strong, diversified team that's collaborative. Relentless innovation is one of our core values, and constantly trying to find ways to change the game for our customers. If we can't do it differently than anybody else, then why do it at all? Because it's just a race to the bottom. So to us, success and growth is a sustainable organization that is able to pivot quickly and act on opportunities as they reveal themselves to us. And we've been very successful at doing that. Of course, it's always a journey and it's a cycle. Of course, since 2006, we've seen a lot from world recessions to pandemics to divorces to trade wars, supply chain collapses, you name it, right? So pretty much the worst times anyone's seen in business. So the way we run business today is a completely different way than, let's say we would have historically run businesses 40, 50 years ago. So it's a whole different game. So growth to us is sustainable growth where the wheels don't fall off, where everybody in the organization is benefiting from it. And we're able to have the agility and flexibility to solve our customers' problems and basically pivot at a moment's notice.
Totally. So what is your vision for sales in the next 3 to 5 years?
We've positioned ourselves well. We've recently done a 50,000 square foot expansion, so over doubled our space. We've filled that with capital. We've now established a very diversified customer base, not only in industry, but within those industries, because when you're small and you start, you tend to get overwhelmed by one specific customer, and that's dangerous, of course, because they have too large of a percentage of your sales. So we've been very successful at building a very solid customer base diversification within industry, and now outside of industry due to the trade wars, which has been helpful. And so, yeah, brand new state-of-the-art injection molding facility set up for lights out manufacturing. We have the capital, we have the building, we have the people, and we are in an incredible position right now to 2.5 times, 3 times our sales in the next 2 to 3 years. So we're in a good position. We have the team and we have the technology. So, yeah.
Okay. So what's working? Look, the market has changed. How a lot of ways people develop sales, prospected, grow their business is changed. So what have you found that's working best for generating new leads right now? And how would you say that it's different from when you started? And no doubt there's got to be some difference there.
Yeah, completely different from when we started. I mean, when we started, it was a dormant organization when we purchased it. There was only one person and it had 0 sales. And it was otherwise known as a mom and pop shop doing small prototypes, and that's frankly what it was. So our vision was lights out manufacturing, high volume manufacturing, high levels of innovation and engineering, solving customers' problems, right? And alternative ways from what people traditionally do, and we do it through high levels of engineering and innovation and technology adoption. So, of course, our first sales aren't driven the way they are today. First of all, we had to rebrand, so clean the place up. Create at that time sales brochures, which we actually mailed out at that point in time, company videos, and rebranding the company, making sure that people knew that we were open for business, that we weren't a mom and pop shop, that we're a professional engineering organization that is equipped and capable of solving your issues and developing lights out manufacturing systems for injection molding. So that was huge. So we, at that point in time, we literally mailed out 5,000 of our flyers using the Scott's directory. And we actually mailed one. I remember licking the envelope and mailed one to Frank Stronach of Magna. And I remember laughing, going, look at this one. It's for Frank Stronach, like he's going to answer it. And funny enough, we did get a phone call from Frank Stronach's global purchasing manager, said that he had received our flyer and was very interested in what we had to offer, and they would like to talk to us. So that was an example of being bold and reaching out to the top and the best in the world and getting their attention. At that time, our tagline was Canadian made parts at near China prices. So it got a lot of attention. So because of our lights out manufacturing philosophy and integration of vertical integration and technology adoption, we're capable of making parts, high tolerance parts at much lesser price than, of course, our counterparts here in North America, but getting us closer to China by eliminating direct labor and low-level labor. So, that's how we generated at that time. It was really a blitz to market, letting know that we're open, rebranding, and of course, utilizing the historical customer base in which he had, although it was dormant, there was still history there. So it's really getting with those customers, explaining about who we are, where we're headed, what we're capable of, generating trust, showing where our value is. So that was at that point in time. But now we've been here for 20 years, and we have been established on the global stage as a world-class injection molder, and that's well known now. So we have a reputation we can now leverage, and we have a broad breadth of customers. And actually, our focus really is about amplifying our services to our current customer base and adding more value to them, not by bringing on more customers and diluting what we have to offer to everybody, but having more focus on the current customer base in which we've built, in which we have an amazing relationship with, to the point of getting Supplier of the Year awards out of 200,000 suppliers globally.
Wow.
Right. So we're well recognized for it. So now you need to leverage that, right? Obviously, we've proven it. You don't get those awards from GM or Multimatic or so on. These are billion-dollar organizations that they're recognizing us as the single best injection molder in the world out of anybody they've worked with, right? So it's not self-proclaimed that we're world-class or the best, right? It's actually measured from the outside and recognized by very significant people in the industry. So now it's about how do we focus on the current customer base, leveraging that now that that's known, leveraging that reputation, but adding even more value by further integrating ourselves and co-innovating with our customers, embedding ourselves within our customers. So we see us as growing sales with our customers, not by them buying necessarily another part from us, they will buy more parts from us. But with our co-innovation, our engineering development, that we can work with their teams, we can save them way more money on their overheads internally than they can on buying the part a little bit cheaper from somebody else who doesn't offer the same sort of co-innovation and integration within their company. And that's what makes us different. So we'll go in with our engineering teams, work with their teams, find opportunities to save money that greatly lowers their overheads by hundreds of millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, sorry. Which therefore we're adding value that's unrelated really necessarily to the part that we're offering, but therefore that's where they buy the parts from, because you have that added value. So it's an inside sales kind of deal, right? It's really not about sending out flyers and trying to attract new people. And it's about aligning yourself with the right customers with the right alignment and with the right co-innovation, and the world's your oyster, because they don't look elsewhere. That's when you have a misalignment, or you got customers that don't have the same value structure. Our core values are integrity, collaboration, and innovation in the pursuit of excellence in everything we do. And, a lot of people create these value statements and they stick it on the wall, but they don't live them. But we live them to the core in our hiring processes, in our reviews, in our daily conversations with our customers. It's, again, it's not something you just put on a wall, but it's well known and by our customers as well as by our staff. And if that's actually embraced, and then your customer can feel it and they can experience it. Once they experience it, they can't get that anywhere else. It's very rare. And therefore they engage in a way that they don't with anybody else, which creates stability and growth within a smaller customer base that is actually operating under the same value structure, which allows you to, like I said before, it's not about sales growth. It's about maximizing your EBITDA in the current capabilities in which you have. That's really our strategy now going forward. And that's how it's different from, of course, when you first start and you don't have any customers, you don't have that reputation to build on. So really now it's, it's not transactional, it's relational type of sales.
Very good. Very good. All right. So, not everything's perfect, right? So I'm not in general, life isn't always sunshine and roses. So what would you say is your biggest challenge now in terms of generating new business?
Yeah. Well, I think, when things are bad and people say everything is perfectly perfect, then it's kind of a frustrating thing to say to somebody when it doesn't feel perfect. But one person once did say, everything is perfectly perfect. It just may be uncomfortably perfect. So it is as it should be. So yes, there are massive challenges globally. The trade wars are causing huge disruption. Our products specifically are not impacted by the tariffs themselves, but the economy is. In fact, therefore, sales are down, right? So sales drop 30%. We're like, what do we do? We have a world-class team here, and you don't let those people go. You put them to work in ways of to pivot your organization, right? So, sales are down significantly, but our perspective is that everything is perfectly perfect, even if it is uncomfortably perfect. And the key is not to be fraught with stress and anxiety and literally paralyze yourself and to flinch. So my story is I don't flinch. When we go, you do a 100-meter run, if somebody flinches for a fraction of a second, they can't catch up. They're gone. They're lost. So when we get confronted with recessions and pandemics and trade wars and supply chain stuff, what we do is we stay calm, stay tranquil, and we look for the opportunity, and we're patient. And when you can do that, you're clear-minded, you got a positive state of mind, and then you can see the opportunity. The next level of that is to be able to pounce and execute on those opportunities very, very rapidly. And that's what we've been able to do. So in actual fact, when things are seemingly not perfect and there's major challenges, we actually honestly see it as an opportunity. So I know it's a cliche, but to me, I've always said if I ever had to look for another job one day, which I'm not hireable anymore, but if I were, my resume would just say Dave Yeaman, solution provider to opportunities, instead of a problem solver. It's not about solving problems. It's in every problem, there's a massive opportunity, but you have to be the one to be able to see it. But then you have to have the team, the facilities, the people, the technology to execute on it. And that's what I think we've been highly successful at doing. So problems are opportunities. And we have proven through over 20 years to not only live, but grow and thrive through some of the worst business environments anyone's seen in the last 20 years. So and that's proof in the pudding. Hey, we're still standing through all that, right? Starting in 2006, 2008, you have the world's biggest recession, and yet we're still here, right? and not to mention COVID and everything else, and we're thriving, right? So
Amazing. Okay, so every business has a messy middle. Can you share a time where you had a deal or a promising hire or a strategy or plan that didn't go as planned? And what did you
yeah,
learn?
yeah, there was there was a very large opportunity. A lot of our work requires a lot of engineering development up front with the customer and co-innovating the product and developing the product before it actually goes to production. Because it's in the automotive, it takes years. The sales cycle is 3 to 5 years, right? So it's very risky when you engage on a project. And if that project is not successful and does not go to market for some reason, then you've just lost 3 years of development. And, you don't call it 80 to 100 people. We can't afford for projects not to go to production. Production is where our money is made. The engineering is a service that we provide that is unpaid for to access the sales. So there was a project that we engaged on that had a heavy amount of engineering. We were able to solve their problems, bring the product back from China. But ultimately, it didn't make it to market. And they could not get the product to a point where their customer was happy. And therefore, it collapsed and got canceled after several years of engineering and development. And as a smaller organization, that ties up your entire engineering department. And that's everything you're working on. So you just lost 2 to 3 years of potential sales growth that now is not translating into anything. What did I learn by that? I like to think that we do a good job at vetting our customers. In this case, it was a very large customer. It wasn't a startup. So we typically don't engage with startups because getting that to market and the sales cycles and the lofty goals that people have often don't take hold, and we can't afford to have those type of delays. So in our case, what I found out was that you can have startups within companies. So big $billion company, but within that company, they were trying to take on a new set market segment that they were not experts in. And they were trying to take that section of the market. And then, we went along for that ride and they were unable to break into that. So it was sort of a startup within a company, even though they're a big, stable company. At the end of the day, they just, write it off and move on and they're fine. But to us, it's very dramatic. And so we have to be a little bit more careful. Just because they're a big customer, current customer, good customer, doesn't mean they're going to be successful at getting at whatever they're doing to market. So we need to be very, very selective in those type of projects and be a little more. It's hard to say no, though. These are customers that are rewarding us for being great and need our services. So how do you say no to a customer that's asking you for those services? On speculation that it might not launch, like I don't know how to deal with that. So, what do you learn by it? You've got to be careful. Was it a bad decision? That was actually a brilliant decision, but we don't have control of what's happening on the other end of the market, right?
All right, thank you. So as you look ahead for the next 12 to 24 months, what is the biggest growth, transformation, or opportunity that you see? And what is the biggest risk as well on your radar?
Yeah. So, secret with the trade wars and the economy create big challenges. But as I said before, we're solution providers to opportunities. And it has created huge opportunities for us. So yes, sales are down. We have a significant amount of capital that we've intentionally built out. Throughout COVID and stuff, we built up a lot of capacity to support COVID. We built 27 million face shields during COVID to support the Ontario provincial government frontline workers. So that was a massive pivot at the time. And we built up a lot of capital in order to do that with the intention of deploying that post-COVID, knowing that it wouldn't be needed for that purpose post-COVID. So we're very successful at that. But then the next level is to fill all that capacity. And you've got to handle the overheads in the interim. And that's been a phase we've been working at since COVID. And now we're on the precipice of taking off, going from good to great. We're at the end of the hockey stick. So customers are engaging like crazy. Reshoring's happening faster than we can imagine. Not only, before it was reshoring from, let's say, China or India or something. Now it's like we're bringing stuff from the States to Canada. So it's not even reshoring. It's bringing things back to Canada. So we have customers, like new customers that have come on and said, look, we're buying stuff from China. We're buying stuff from the States. We're buying stuff from India. And we have all these disjointed processes and we have all these supply chain issues and trade wars and it's a nightmare. Can you just take everything for us? And we've been very, very successful in doing that. And so those are huge opportunities we would have otherwise not seen had the pain points not got so bad for our customers, right? And even they weren't even a current customer. They were someone that found us again through networking and our reputation for solving problems. And we've done that. And there's unfortunately not everybody is in the same position financially. So if one is weak out there right now, then you're really in trouble. So there's a lot of consolidation that's happening in the market. So there's some suppliers or competitors that are going out of business. That creates what we call transfer work. So that work, those parts still need to be made for the car. So those tools get picked up and moved to our facility, and then off we go. And because we've built a state-of-the-art facility that's known globally, clearly we can solve the problem. We're not the ones that they have safety in what we have to offer here in terms of our facility and our equipment, investment in our company, the fact that we're owner operated and we're not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
We have a proven ability to solve the problems that quickly. So these have created massive opportunities for us. Does that create challenges? Of course. The good news is we have the facility. We don't have to build a facility and buy the capital. In the midst of it, we've already positioned ourselves for that. And we've literally built the most incredible world-class team that I could possibly imagine through this process too, because when times are slow and things are rough and companies are cutting back, foreign multinationals are consolidating companies. So they're shutting down companies in Canada, moving them to the States, let's say. Really good people are becoming free that you often don't have an opportunity to get access to, right? We all know that labor and finding great people is very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Great people aren't always found. They're often created. And that's what we do. Like our people say, why do you do it? And I do it because I love seeing people going from just surviving to thriving. And, where I'm located is north of Barrie. Often people are driving to Toronto, driving an hour, 2 hours to Toronto, 2 hours back with the traffic and everything. And their life is all wrapped around being on the highway. It's unsafe. They don't get to see their family. They don't get to see their kids in the morning for dinner. And when we create meaningful, high-paying, high-tech jobs right here in Simcoe County, where people can drive for 15 minutes instead of hours, that completely transforms one's life. So we are the employer of choice in this area, I'd say within a 100-kilometer radius. And therefore, as people become free, then we kind of get first pick of the litter. And we've managed to really build out a very, very strong management team, engineering team, and production team that I've never felt stronger. And that puts us in this incredible position where, although the trade wars seem to be terrible, the economy is terrible, all these opportunities are there for our picking, to be fair. So now it's execution, right? It's not like the wheels fall off as in this case, 3x our sales in under 2 years. But we're in a position for it and we're aligned for it. And 2026 is going to be an incredible year.
Great. And that's perfect actual lead-in in terms of, training and developing and supporting your staff so that they can be as effective, ultimately, as they're as effective as they can be. So is your organization. So though this is a sales podcast, right? So in terms of effectiveness training and development for sales, how do you approach it with your team and for yourself?
Yeah. Well, like I said, when we started the business, it's not like I came from sales training school, right? I didn't come out of marketing, didn't have any formal training in sales, but again, you look for your unique ability. I may be an engineer, and I'm good at engineering, but I have other strengths, unique abilities that you're, let's say, born with, but they still need to be developed. And even though I was always in engineering roles, high-level engineering roles, I was generating a ton of sales through the relationships that I was able to create with customers. And it's really through authenticity and being truthful, not telling them what they want to hear and ask for forgiveness later. It's actually one reason why I started my own business. I was kind of forced in other organizations to tell them what they want to hear and ask for forgiveness later. And I physically couldn't do it. Integrity is my number one core value, right? Company's integrity, collaboration, and innovation. Without integrity, I'm like, what do you have to stand on? And I couldn't do it. I'm like, I can't, you can't lie. I'm not going to lie to the customer to get the work and ask for forgiveness later. Now, I have learned that's great when you're not running a company. Now you're running a company and you start to realize why people were doing what they're doing. And what's really difficult is I get that. I get what they're doing, because at the end of the day, it comes in, you've got the work, you'll work it out, you still keep the work for the next 5 years and you got the job. The other guy who's dishonest gets it. You don't if you're honest. So you're left aside. So the only way to do it is to do that. So now that you are the leader and you are in a position to make that decision, holding fast and true to those core values of integrity, that's what I sell. I'm like, I just won't lie to you. I will tell you about the problems you're going to have if you do go with the lower cost option or design in that way that is going to fail. And, they have to trust you, and that comes with time. But, I don't have a sales approach. I always say to anybody when I'm in the room, I'm not a salesperson. I own the company. I'm an engineer. I'm going to be really honest with you, and I want to develop a relationship on like co-innovation and seeing the overall value we have to offer, not in the cost of the part I sell you. And that's what I want to demonstrate to you. And again, they're all words, right? But this is where, when you're recognized globally through awards from the outside world. We can hold those up. We can show them examples. We're working on a campaign now called #MPC Solve That. I realized a couple of weeks ago giving a customer a tour, and every part I picked up, I said, yeah, my customer had this problem and we solved that. That's why we're doing this. And I picked up another part, said, yeah, this part had a huge warranty problems with the previous supplier, and we took it over and we solved that. And I kept saying it indirectly. I didn't even realize it, right? And I was like, wow, I'm like 100% of what I picked up, it was a problem we solved. We don't get work unless it's a problem that we solve, because we're seen as expensive, right? On the outside world. Well, I'm 7 cents, the next guy's 4. Well, you're too expensive. I'm like, well, you haven't experienced the value generation that we can do for you, and your overheads, and your lack of warranties, and your having all this extra overhead managing suppliers that you got to spend 500 hours at dealing with because they're not on time and shipping bad product, right? So that completely changes the game. So from a sales training standpoint, it's I haven't achieved any, I haven't had any formal sales training, but I wholeheartedly believe it is relational. It's not transactional. And it is about listening deeply, understanding what those issues are, and finding a real problem. Whenever I deal with somebody who's salesy with me, it drives me nuts. And I tell them outright, I'm like, don't sell me, right? Like, I almost have to coach them. Say, look, I just tell me the value you have to add, and I'll tell you whether that means something to me or it applies to me. And then we'll engage. If I see the value, I will engage. I don't need all the, pussyfooting around it all. Like, be direct and be real and tell me the truth. And what is their challenge I've always had specifically with salespeople is, their wage or their commissions being based on sales volume, right? And anybody can sell revenue, but what's the EBITDA? So the first salesperson that walks in and says, hey, here's my track record. I sold $50 million at a 22% EBITDA margin and a 55% gross margin. Then that's the person who actually understands that it is about the profit, not about the revenue. And how did you do that? And you do that through relationships, engaging, co-innovation, and solving the customer's problem. That's 101, because it sounds too simple. Well, you listen to the customer and then you find out what their problems are and then you solve them. Well, great, that's easy to say, but how you go about that, the relationships that you generate, and that to be authentic, not something I was taught to do, right?
Yeah, it's about business transformation rather than transaction, right?
Yeah.
Plus, the whole sales thing, it doesn't even work, right? It just doesn't work anymore. People are when you're dealing with business owners, they're gonna smell that fakeness out the moment you open your mouth. So you're better off at least, figuring out talking about the prospect, talking about the person you're speaking about. It's not about what me as the salesperson perceives you need, right? It's about what the actual individual needs, right?
Yeah. And like I say, it's alignment first on core values, second on what you have to offer with what they need. And if you can find that, then the world's your oyster. If you can, I won't say sell, but demonstrate that value, that extra value that you can then add to them. That's above and beyond the physical part. It's the relationship which is going to lower your overheads and therefore create more money than the extra half cent you're going to give me in a part. So the other side of sales and the way we approach it is, this dawned on me really over the last 2 years, and I started executing it internally, was really everybody's a salesperson. It was an email I put out to the whole company and saying, who is our salespeople? Who are they? And the bottom line is, you're the salesperson. We're all salespeople. So if you go to the pub after work and you get your paycheck and you're having a drink and you're having a chat with your buddy and you're saying, I work for this company. It's incredible. They're innovative. They treat us well. It's an amazing place. They've developed the community for us. I'm part of all these clubs. I'm friends. I'm well paid. I'm recognized well for what I do. And the guy beside him works at Magna, and he's the global purchasing manager. He's like, oh, he's listening, right? And it goes the same way. If you start complaining about the company, then they're going to be like, what's this? So, how everybody speaks about the company, how they present themselves about the company becomes a salesperson for the organization. And keep in mind, we're not just selling product. We have to sell to people to attract people to come here. We need to, when we're in an interview with somebody, I'm like, look, I'm trying to convince you to come here. It's not you trying to convince us to bring you here. It's an equal transaction. So we're trying to sell to the world about, hey, yeah, we are the employer of choice. Come work for us, and this is why, right? How can we better your life by working here? It's not really about what you do. It's about how it's going to impact your life overall for your family and our community. So that being said, it was about using our supply base too So I was like, I mean, we have a world-class facility. Everybody who comes in is blown away and goes, oh my God, I didn't know this was here. So, if you use your um, suppliers, sorry, use your suppliers. Your suppliers are actually supplying the entire industry. So they have a lot of intel about what's going on in the industry. The more your suppliers know, the more that your suppliers will spread that word. So we basically have as many tours as we possibly can, get as many people through the facility as possible, and using our supply base to help actually like uncover new opportunities and point us in those directions. And our engineering, similar to how I started out, when our engineering is engaged with customers, that it's not an engineering transaction, right? It's a relationship transaction, and training and teaching them that, right? So, if I send out a traditional salesy person, then that's one of my biggest challenges. Is how do I find and train those people? And I was going to say beat that out of them, but that's probably not the appropriate word to use. But it's very, very hard, right? And they have to be doing it for the organization and not for self. And this is where sales commissions kind of I struggle with, because if the company rises, we all rise together. If the company goes down, we go down together. And so I don't think like sales commissions really like drive true relational type of transactions, in my opinion, anyways. So yeah, everybody.
Traditional sales approach, it doesn't.
Sorry?
It definitely doesn't drive relationships if you're following the traditional sales approach that what we've seen about 99% of salespeople are still following.
Yeah.
Which is an old, outdated, features and benefits pony dance.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. And another thing that I used to, if we talk about the hills and valleys, and what we've learned over time from a sales approach, was that I used to say, look, I don't find customers through social media, right? I'm dealing with Magna and GM. They don't go into Google and have it go be top of SEO for them to find you. They go looking for a plastic injection molder in North America and be at the top, right? It's not how I find my customers. And that was sort of my attitude. And originally I didn't even pay a lot of attention to my website. It was old, it was outdated. I was like, it doesn't really matter. That's not, important. But I did realize that my website is what's attracting staff. So it actually became like, we have to attract the best and retain the best to be the best. So our website has to present who we actually are, and it didn't. So we put a ton of effort into that. Of course, your customers, when you find a potential client, they're going to go there to check you out. So it has to be professional, and that's great. But more so on social media, right? LinkedIn, Instagram, now TikTok. I didn't put a lot of weight on it. And recently, we've been starting to put a lot of effort into that. And it's really changing the game. It just gives you're kind of putting out to the world and reinforcing the reputation in which you have, right? In your culture, your people, your innovation, and your technology and what you have to offer. And that does create a lot more awareness. So we're now, we'll have a full-time marketing coordinator that's constantly working on social media as well. So it's, if you're just operating in a black box where no one can get to you, then you're at risk of not finding all the opportunities that are potentially available. So we're putting a lot of effort into the social media aspect of it, which is proven to have some very, very good results in attracting some people that we've actually put on our management team through that, as well as customers that have noticed that really they said, look, we went to the States because we couldn't find anyone in Canada to do do our product at this level. And then we found you, and they came here. That had we only known, we would have kept it here. And in actual fact, now because of the trade wars, they're moving it back here and they're moving it to us. So, you've got to have the reputation. You have to have that presence online, and that has to be maintained and constantly groomed. So it's not enough just to say that you are, but if no one knows where you are or who you are, then it doesn't matter. So that's been another big shift for us from like, I don't get sales on social media or my website to, wow, it's insanely important, not only for finding sales in terms of the product we make, but as selling your company to people whom you can attract the best of the best as well. So it's really, really important.
Thanks for sharing that. Super helpful. Okay. Well, when you're thinking about your own leadership though, and you talked, you gave us a lot of information about your hiring and what you're looking for and how you try to set them up. But like, what's been the hardest adjustment that you've had to make as your company has scaled massively?
Yeah, the biggest one is, that people, there's a reputation of like owners don't want to let go, right? You want to hold on to everything, you want to control everything.
Mhm.
Excuse me, just a second.
Mhm. All good.
Um, it's that is true in some cases. Often it can be like, well, nobody can do it as well as me, so I just might as well do it myself, and that type of attitude. I'm not saying that we had that, but it was very difficult to find people that had the same breadth of knowledge, right? Because as you build a business, you learn so much about the business and all aspects of the business that you can do so much so fast because you understand engineering, you understand accounting, you understand shipping, you understand technology, automation, customers. um, so you're able to do an awful lot where when you go to hire somebody to do that, rarely does anybody have all those skills because they never had the opportunity to work in all those different areas.
Mhm.
So, it takes a long time to realize that you've got to take yourself, divide it into 4 or 5 people, and then find the best of best in each one of those segments. You need to identify as a leader what is your unique ability, and do only that, and find
Mhm.
others to do the rest. So, whenever you're thinking, well, how do I do this? You should be asking yourself, who could do this that already has
Mhm.
this and benefit from doing it? And when you're small, often you can't afford it, right? So you're sitting there doing all these things you're not great at, you don't even want to do. You can get it done, but it's not the best, but it's the best you can do, and I can't afford to hire somebody. So there's always this dichotomy, right? I don't have the money, but you have to hire somebody before you can afford them, right? And if you're hiring the right people, what I call, like, the rock stars, the A people, then they're going to pay for themselves. But you've got to pay for them before you have the money. This is the problem we all have in a growing company. So you have to have the courage to invest in those people, knowing that there's a return on investment. These people are investments; they're not a cost, and you have to change your mindset to that. Like, what you invest in that person has a return on investment. It's not, oh, they're a cost. I can't afford the cost of that person. Well, if you invest in the right thing, it'll have a return on investment. So, yeah, so making that shift, having the courage to hire people that are better at segments of the business that you're not so great at, having the courage to hire them before you can afford them, and then assembling systems and structure that remains rapid. So part of the reasons why we grew and why we've done so well is because of our ability to pivot, to move quickly. When we get a phone call and there's an opportunity, a PO is cut that day and we're moving. If you go to a
Mhm.
large multinational and there's an opportunity, they're like, okay, maybe 6 to 8 weeks from now, they might cut a PO to get the job moving. So
Mhm.
the risk is when you built your company on entrepreneurship, on innovation, on speed to market, solving problems, being able to execute very quickly, is as you grow, how do you maintain that speed without all the bureaucracy slowing all that down? And that's been one of our biggest challenges. Things that we used to do in days takes weeks, months.
Right.
And that's hard to watch when it's your own company, but it's necessary because you need the strongest systems in order to survive as you add people to it. So one with the strongest systems will be the one that wins in the end. So you've got to be developing the systems that you can put multiple people into where it leads to ultimate success and still yet doesn't become too much of a bureaucracy. So you can still pivot and move. And this is where the core values come in that is so important in collaboration and innovation. Because if everybody pulls on that same rope and we do truly have this pursuit of perfection, and perfection is ultimate customer satisfaction, then then you can do those things even in a larger organization. But you have to design systems and policies and procedures and stuff that allow that. And you have to give freedom to people to make decisions and trust them to do that. And that is a difficult thing for a business owner to do,
Yep.
especially since it's divided among. So we call them handoffs. So when there's one person that wore 4 hats, there's no handoffs. You're doing all of it. There's no communication error between yourself and the next self that's doing the next task. But if you got 4 people, there's communication errors, there's data transfer. Oh, I missed that email. I did a typo wrong, whatever it might be, or lack of understanding. That's where the mistakes get made. So now you have to control the risk at the handoffs. And those are the systems in which you're developing. Say, okay, what are the risks and how do you control them? That's what business owners do. They identify risk and they control it, right? That's not all. You got to have the sales to control the risk in the first place. But it's all about controlling risk. So those systems and then the right people into those systems, trusting those people, clarity of lines of communication, and give them the freedom to execute and trust them, and then we all pull side by side. And, you got to take the ego out of business. It's like admit when you don't know, right? I often sit in the room and say, I have no idea. But what I do know is if I pull the right people together in the room, we'll figure it out. And that's what makes me unique. It's not that I know everything. At one point, somebody called me their fearless leader. And I said, look, anybody who agrees that they're your fearless leader, don't work for them. They're a liar. We're all terrified. And most of us have no idea what we're doing. But what we're good at is bringing the right people together in order to figure out what it is. We don't know everything and we're not fearless. Right?
Mhm.
But we're willing to take risk for whatever reason, whatever that purpose is that we're willing to do that.
Mm.
And ideally, if we're really good at it, we know to hire the right people, put the right people in the room, admit where you don't know and where you're weak, or maybe where you're scared, and work it out together as a team. At the end of the day, I always know that we'll come up with something. And it's not going to come solely from me. It'll come from the collaboration of the team, right?
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. So, if you could give one piece of advice for an Ontario business owner who's just hit a growth ceiling, what would that be?
Well, I guess it would be, in my case, I'm always trying to look forward about where am I going, and developing my organizational structure and my systems that I will grow into them instead of trying to have my systems catch up as I'm going. I've said that ever since I started the business, and I've failed at it terribly many, many times. I said, let's plan as if we're Honda and we'll grow into those systems. Now, it's not practical in some cases because it's too big of a bureaucracy and you can't really grow into something like that. You have to generate something different. But if you're constantly chasing your tail and your systems are falling apart as you're growing because they don't support it anymore, or they don't work anymore, people stop using them and it gets worse and worse and worse. And you're operating from the side of your desk and everybody guessing. And we have these systems that people don't even look at anymore. So you really have to project forward and say, okay, what is going to go wrong? What could go wrong? We have it's a potential failure mode and effect analysis we use in manufacturing. So we look at the process, and then we look at the risks associated that can happen in that process. And then we look at the severity of the occurrence and the detection of that happening. And then we put controls in place to control that risk. So you really need to project forward and say, what does it look like? What are we going to need 5 years from now when we're 3 times in sales? And we have a current org chart and a future org chart, right? We have current accountabilities and we have future accountabilities. People can see where they're going to grow into, and we're already moving in a place where we'll fit into it as we move, as opposed to always catching up. It happens all the time, and it's no judgment on anybody. We've been trying to catch up forever. And when you grow rapidly, it's seemingly impossible because every time you develop something, it's different tomorrow. We're working through a business development system right now, and say, well, what's your 10-year goal? And I said, well, let me ask you, let's go back to 2016, 10 years ago. And you asked me what my 10-year goal was. Does it look anything like where I am today? Since then, I've been divorced. We've had a pandemic. We've had the supply chain collapse. And now we have tariffs in the last 10 years. And you're asking me to project forward to tell you where I expect to be in 10 years. Now, that
Make
doesn't
up the
mean
most crazy thing you could ever possibly come up with, and that might be exactly what you're in for. So plan for it.
Yeah, like you can't predict it. Now, I get it's like not making your bed. Like, why make my bed? Because when I get home, I'm just going to mess it up again. You have to have a plan. You have to have a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal to move you forward towards something. But I guess another thing for other people who are growing quickly is, people are forcing business owners to say, oh, well, you've got to have this, 5-year plan and your mission, your vision, and all this clearly, disseminated. And I'm like, I finally figured out, I'm like, if I had a business plan, I put that in place 10 years ago and I stuck to that strictly, then we'd be dead right now. We wouldn't exist. So what I realized, my business plan was actually to develop a team that is able to pivot, that we have really rapid lines of communication, the right people in the right place at the right time, with super fast forms of communication, so that we can constantly move and act upon any opportunities that create themselves. And that could just be a production problem on the floor. It could be a customer coming to you with an issue. And I go, that's my business plan. And it was funny because I was working with a business coach at the time, and they're like, write that down. I'm like, am I allowed to do that? Because that's not what they want to teach you in the MBA, right? So I'm like, he's like, yeah, so write that down. Now let's develop a plan about how you build that team and the rapid forms of communication and being able to operate active. So what do you need in your systems and your people and your facilities and your technology in order to do that? And then that'll build out what you're doing. And I was like, well, that's a little bit more refreshing, because it's not saying, I'm going to be at this in sales doing this product by this point in time. It's more about our business strategy is about being able to execute on the opportunities as they reveal themselves, as long as it's still within our wheelhouse of what we have to offer, that we are the best in the world at. And I was like, and it's been refreshing. So we've been building that out now. And yeah, I create a big, hairy, audacious goal for 10 years from now. And, and we're working towards it. So, it does help you formulate. Well, in that case, we can't have huge lines of huge bureaucracy. We can't have, multi-tiered organizational charts where communication gets stuck down. We have to have trust in our people and have capable people to make decisions on their own and move forward by having the right understanding of our missions and visions and what we're trying to do with the same core values. They will make the right decision. So now they're empowered and you can now move without having all of that. And I think that's what makes us distinctively different is we won't allow that bureaucracy to that's why we left the other companies we were at. We just couldn't stand moving so slow and not having those opportunities. So yeah, it's a challenge, and it's a cycle. We're always going through cycles, right? This is my fourth or fifth business cycle of like, you made it, you lost it, you made it, you lost it, you made it, you lost it, whatever it is. But business owners have to be prepared for that. It's never this, right? We increased 25, 30% in sales every year for a decade, never lost money from startup, right? And then, in comes pandemics and everything else. And it's been quite the ride. So there's going to be ups and downs. It's just going to be your mindset and how you approach it. And do you have the team and the capability to be able to execute on opportunities as they reveal themselves in a more so than ever escalating, exponential, transformative world that's changing every 6 months instead of every decade. So before we had to pivot every decade, now we have to pivot every 6 months. And that's the reality of it. So what are you building in your company in order for you to do that? And how does your sales team operate in that environment, right? You've got to train them and teach them to seek those opportunities, not just doing the same thing, right? What is revealing itself out there that we couldn't see before or wasn't even there before had we not had this catastrophe, right? So
absolutely. Well, hey, I really appreciate that. That's some very practical, real, authentic information right there. So this has been amazing. David, thank you for your time. And we look forward to continuing to speak with you and look forward to your continued success in business.
thank you very much.